Something cool is coming down the pike and you're going to want to be there. I am so excited to be sharing this with you all very soon. And the best way to get in the loop and be the first to know what is going to be happening with Body Kindness is to become a Body Kindness Insider. It's absolutely free. All you need to do is visit bodykindnessbook.com and click on Get Started. That's bodykindnessbook.com. Click on Get Started, and you're going to give your email address. When you get that, you're going to get instant access to the Body Kindness e-course, also free. That's going to give you a video reflection guide. One of my favorite resources, it's the Health and Happiness Journal. So when folks are like, I want to track things, but I don't want to count calories anymore. I'm getting rid of my Fitbit. What do? You can use this daily journaling practice. It's simple. It's effective. It gets you thinking in the body kindness mindset. And it's all there for you for free. And you could start reflecting on the changes that you're making in your life. So when you sign up as an insider, you're also going to get check-ins from me, and you're going to be the first to know what I have up my sleeve coming here very soon. You're not going to want to miss it. Thank you so much for listening to my Body Kindness podcast. I would love it if you would leave a rating and review. That really helps me very much in just hearing how people feel about the podcast. And also, I would love to get guest recommendations or suggestions for show topics. You can email me. It's Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com. Hey there, before we dive into the show, I just want to give you a quick heads up. So I finally get to talk to Bernie again. We took most of the summer off, so it was so fun to reconnect with him. First, a little technical side of things. Bernie and I are both parents, and juggling our busy schedules, sometimes it can be challenging to find time to talk. Well, anyway, long story short, you will very likely throughout most of this show hear some crickets. So it had to do with where Bernie was traveling and able to join me on a call. And he was just, at a place where he couldn't control where he was and what type of life was around him. So just going to point that out to the listeners. And now you'll definitely be able to hear it and, have a quick chuckle. And then before you know it, it will come off into the background, or maybe it will help soothe your mood. The other thing I wanted to make sure is that you listen all the way through, because I'm so excited to announce that there's going to be a theme for the month of September podcast, and there's going to be an optional challenge as well. And I'm not sure how I feel about the word challenge anymore anyway, but it's supposed to be positive and interesting and help you learn and grow. And this is something that I'm personally very excited to get back into, and I don't want to give it away completely, but it is something that you could do every day. It's something around movement, but also I feel like focused on well-being and emotion regulation and stress management, and it has many intersections. So please do listen all the way through and then jump in anytime in the month of September. And we'd love to have you with us on social media, connecting through the challenge. And then one last thing has to do with Bernie bringing up the cancellation of The Biggest Loser. And I just would like to ask listeners to have some compassion for him. So we have a little bit of a discussion about it. And I think you could probably tell from the discussion that we don't 100% see eye to eye. But the truth of it is, I was not a contestant on the show. I don't have Bernie's lived experience. And after sleeping on it, I think that part of his perspective is that he had an experience that lasted for many years that went way beyond what ended up being broadcast, and that he made some human connections with people that, went beyond kind of what the show really did to the contestants and what I believe was a detrimental to society. But he has this interesting take where he sees some benefits. And so I don't know, I didn't really bring it up on the show. We were kind of running out of time, but it kind of reminded me of like post-traumatic growth, where you're not necessarily grateful for the very bad experience that happened to you, but you feel like it forever changed you so that you feel like you've grown as a result. So I don't know. I just decided I actually barely edit any of my shows. I listen to them, but I really try to just let them live their conversations. And so I really didn't touch this one at all. So you'll see how the conversation comes out. But I just wanted to give a heads up. If you have questions or thoughts or concerns, by all means, you can always email me. It's Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hey, Bernie, what's up? It's so good to finally be talking to you again.
I know, Rebecca, it's been a long time. Definitely have missed you, have missed our listeners, and I'm ready to get going and start updating on what's going on.
Awesome. Well, how has your summer been?
It's flown by. I kind of feel like, there's just not enough of it. I'm kind of sad that it's almost done. My little one is growing very fast, running around, starting to talk. So her favorite word right now is no, and it seems like everything I do is wrong. So I'm having a little bit of just giving me a little bit of a complex at this point in my life.
Well, that doesn't change. And I mean, in fact, both of my girls love the word no. And I'm even getting, you're a mean mommy. You're the meanest mommy in the world. And,
no.
Well, and it's just like, it's because they're hearing no from me, or they're hearing something where I have a good reason. So I'm trying to talk to them more about the rationale behind it. But yeah, they're starting to express their feelings, I guess. I don't know if that ever ends.
Good thing, right? It's a good thing. That's what I keep reminding myself. She's definitely has her personality, and it's pretty awesome to see, but I just don't think I'm ready for it.
Yeah. I don't know where that handbook on parenting, how I ever lost that handbook.
Mine definitely
changes your life.
I never even got it in my possession. So the fact that you lost it, you're one step up. You got to read the cover.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm imagining it's there. I'm imagining that it's just not. One of the things I recently did this summer, I was very fortunate to be able to attend this invitation only conference on the future of food and nutrition and health. And it was facilitated by a futurist, and it was in Copenhagen, Denmark. And awesome. I had heard through many articles I've read when writing Body Kindness, but especially The Overwhelm by Bridget Schulte, who she did an advance praise for the book, and she is coming up on the podcast soon. She talks about how the Danes are like the happiest culture in the world, and just does this, she went there, and I think she had a conference there too, as a matter of fact, but just kind of talks about the differences. And over there they're very family friendly, and I mean, it is a totally different system, and put in perspective, Denmark is the size of Rhode Island. So what they can do through all of Denmark, when you think of how big the US is and how scalable things are. But for example, their base is 5 weeks paid vacation. It's a 37-hour work week. So their rush hour is like at 4 p.m. Everybody bikes like, so it's like they get movement as part of their day. And they get good salaries because they do have higher taxes. That's the thing, and I've heard anywhere between 50 and 60%, which is a lot. But they also get free healthcare, and they get school is free, which is, like public school's free here. But then when you go to college, not only is it free, but you get paid. And it's for up to 9 years, and then they finally cut it off. Like, if you can't pick a career path and 9 years of studying at university, then we're going to cut you off. But it's just very family friendly. One of the events we had was called Dine with the Danes. And we literally were invited into a Danish family's household. And so ours, it was so cool. Like the mom is an engineer and she's since divorced, but her husband and his wife live just down the road. And so we had the mom and the two girls, and like she's an engineer, so she was showing us like the chicken coop that she was building outside. She made her daughter's bed. She sews her kids' clothes, and she's holding up these like images of her Pinterest projects. And I'm like, okay, so that I can totally relate to. And I'm watching her do this stuff. And I was like, gosh, I'd love to do this stuff. I wish I had the time. Like, how does she have the time? And she was able to, I guess, after her maternity leave, like negotiate a sliding scale. So it's basically a full-time job, but it's 30 hours a week instead of 37. And so her pay slides, her vacation slides, but she still gets these types of benefits, And so I think that is just, I didn't even go to the most important one, the maternity and paternity leave. So you get, I think moms get a full year, and I believe dads get 6 months. And I'm not sure if they have to share that or not, but it's a heck of a lot of time, of paid time to be with your child and to not worry about it. And, in the US, there's no maternity leave program, but technically you get like disability, so they can't give your job away, but it's not very long, right?
Yeah, thanks for that. Right?
Well, and then me, and again, I working for myself, I really can't complain, but like I don't get any type of those, there was no leave. So, I literally had another dietitian who was in my practice. And so I maybe was off for 5 days and I was back down seeing some clients because you can't let it all slip away. So that's all this. I mean, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the cool things I was doing this summer anyway. And that was one of them. But I think when we talk about kids and parenting and how we didn't get the parenting book or how hard or challenging things can really be, it really does beg this higher level question of why is it that, when you look at like depression, stress, anxiety, and emotional eating or lack of self-care, why do Americans get on average 17 minutes of exercise a day? There's always going to be a deeper explanation. It's not because Americans have this gene that's like, I don't want to take care of myself. I want to sabotage every little possible well-being thing I can. Like, we're not trying to, harm ourselves in these different ways. We end up harming ourselves. But I believe that we have this dis-ease in our culture about how we frame up everybody as equals. So if you don't have kids, you get your benefits and your vacations and things, but you don't begrudge families who do have kids. And, I wish our culture did a better job about helping us, it's not in that sort of kill yourself trying to have it all way, but did a better job about supporting the well-being of families, I think is the bottom line.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. If our listeners could see me, I'm definitely nodding in agreement. I think that one point that you hit on that was pretty relevant to what's going on with me is, you try to be everything for everybody. Mm-hmm. And that's really difficult, especially when you have a little one. You want to be there, and at least for me in my situation, I'm seeing certain things kind of fall by the wayside a bit. Mm-hmm. I'm not getting as much activity this summer as I thought I would. Mm-hmm. And when I say activity, it's not that I'm not moving with my daughter. Last year we had talked about that was one of my goals. Yep. But I think along with it is a little bit of that, me time to think, time to reflect. Exercise for me, when I was at a really healthy place with movement, was a time for me to be with myself, think with myself, and really kind of expand, myself and what I was doing with my life and where I was going, and at least have time, those quiet moments to think about it. I think when you're a parent, that gets taken away bit by bit to the point where you don't even realize it sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I think that feeds into what you were talking about, where, our movement's been cut down to maybe 17 minutes a day, or what was it, a day or a week, or?
Yeah, it was average out to be about 17 minutes a day. Just, if you think about it, if you have some planned exercise, if you do it just 3 or so days a week, And then on those other days, you're sitting at work, sitting in the car.
Yeah, yeah. Not to mention sleep if you have a little one that's gone. And not even just a little one, a teenager. I can't even imagine what some of our parents are going through that are waiting up for their teenagers or wondering what they're up to. And, it's just one of those things where I am continually trying to learn how to balance this out so that I can be the healthiest person for myself and then for my family. And it's been challenging.
Yeah. Well, talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges that you're having or kind of what you're hoping, maybe how you're hoping to kind of take a turn for September.
So, again, the movement has been a little bit of a challenge, at least in terms of me taking time for myself. And when I say movement, like, again, it's just being able to maybe take a yoga class, or for me, I really enjoy like boxing or kickboxing or, something that kind of releases everything all at once. And I haven't had a chance to do that. So I really want to increase the time that I'm able to do that. I just am arranging my calendar a little bit better. I know that I have to maybe get up earlier so that, when the baby's with my wife, I can get out and do that. One thing that I shared with you right before we got on was the fact that, for some reason, I'm feeling a little bit low energy. I don't know. I usually, in the middle of summer when the sun's out, I'm good, but I'm feeling a little bit, just foggy and hazy lately. So I wanted to share that with our listeners because I like to be upfront and honest. And this summer, I don't know why, it feels like I'm struggling a little bit physically and mentally. And I think it's just a little bit of fatigue. I think when you're balancing everything, you kind of hit that point sometime during the year, and it just so happens to be at this time. So last year I had gone to the doctor. I had shared the results with all our listeners, and I really liked the fact that I wasn't living my life blind to what's really going on with me physically.
Right.
I've gone ahead and I've scheduled another appointment, just a wellness checkup type thing, just to share with my doctor just some of my concerns about maybe being a little bit lower energy than I want to be. I think once you kind of know the facts and you choose to know your reality, it feels good. So I wanted to just do that again. And I usually try to do that in January of every year, but why not do it twice a year? What a crazy idea.
Well, yeah. And I remember last time we talked, you had mentioned to me feeling, like brain fog and everything. And the labs they ran came back good. But, there definitely could be something else going on. I mean, again, I think that just being a parent and being on top of all the things, right, that you're supposed to do and do somehow perfectly every single day is very energy draining. It's very anxiety producing. All the decisions parents have to make every day that requires you to stop and think, it is exhausting. And if you're struggling with sleep, which you had mentioned, that is consistently going to be a factor. And I wish I had a magical answer for you, but the only thing I can say is that there are some elements of that you can control and some that you can't, right? So hopefully the way that bodies work is that if you have a way of, managing your day-to-day stresses and you're not feeling overwhelmed by them, that like a healthy sleep hygiene, you'd be able to fall asleep. Even if you needed to listen to some calming music or do deep breaths to fall asleep, you could fall asleep and stay asleep. With maybe some nights you wake up, whether the baby wakes you up or you just wake up sort of alert. And both of those have happened to me. And then it can be hard to fall back asleep. And I know I get stuck if I wake up and I'm alert, or even if I was woken up, by one of my kids, the second I grab my phone and then whether it's I see, what can I get ragey about on Twitter or whatever, that then alerts my brain. But sometimes even when your body's like, I need sleep, your brain can be active. And when you don't get enough consistent nighttime sleep, the daytime energy, focus, concentration can suffer. And there could very well also be potential issues with vitamins and minerals. I mean, whether it's one of the B vitamins. And again, obviously I'm not counseling you right now and can't do any sort of diagnoses or anything, but this is just from personal experience. my mom was dealing with anemia, like pretty bad anemia, and what they were giving her to fix the anemia wasn't working. And I consulted with some friends who have expertise in areas of her health issues. And they basically said, yeah, that would take forever to help raise it. And, her energy and iron was so low that it wasn't even really safe for her to exercise. And so anyway, long story short, she actually got tested and they found that she has a genetic mutation that makes it hard for her to absorb B vitamins. So they have to be methylated. And just by making a, vitamin and mineral substitution, she was starting to get better. So that is something I can share with you a little bit more offline about, give you some links or something like that. So, and I think for the value and benefit of, listeners, it's that trust your body, listen to it. Definitely go and see your doctor. You may need to do your homework before, and I would recommend that you keep a detailed journal of your sleep habits. So the time you went to bed, if you woke up at all in the night, and you could do that the next morning. So if you wake up at all, try to stay asleep, at least stay in bed. You could maybe sip water. If you need to use the restroom, go use the restroom, then go back to bed. But just calm and soothe yourself back down. And even if your brain feels active, don't do anything with the screen that would engage the activity, because even just laying down is still at least rest. And if you keep a couple weeks, I think, of a sleep diary, that is helpful information. Noticing times of day where you have the brain fog, or certain situations where you have the brain fog. Is it consistent all day long, so any type of information could be helpful. And then I gently recommend consulting Dr. Google, because there's a lot of crappy BS on the internet too. So, Dr. Google / ask someone you trust who may be nurse, doctor, dietitian, or, exercise physiologist, credible, trainer who you trust to be science-based could be helpful. And then, really going in and advocating for yourself and how it's getting in the way of your quality of life, because there could be something real going on that could be helped through some minor modifications. And then the other thing that I would say to that is, how do you, while you feel dejected because it's kind of feels like downward spiraling to me, right? So when you feel dejected by, I'm not sleeping well, I'm not exercising the way I want to do. And it's easy for one day to fall into another to another. And it's just kind of creates that downward spiral effect where, guilt and shame and blame increase, which doesn't help your mood, which, and it kind of...
Exactly. And I think right now you hit it right on the head, Rebecca, which was, trust your body. Know that there are resources out there, and that's what I'm doing. And I think that, being a part of this podcast and truly, living a kinder life, I'm like, wait, there's no cap onto how many times I can, go get checked in on, take some time to just make sure that there is no downward spiral. I mean, before I would have waited a little bit longer, waited for an actual maybe physical symptom, or, I could prove to someone that something was wrong with me. Now I'm like, wait, I'm feeling a little bit low energy. Let's get this looked at right away. It could be a small tweak, and let's get right back on it. And I think that that's super important. When I jumped into, when I got into some of my lowest points of self-care, it's when I did not pay attention to what my body was not just telling me, but screaming at me. And I refused to do that. And again, for me, at this point in my life, everything kind of relates back to parenting. It's like, listen, if my kid sneezes or has an itch right away, being a first-time parent, I'm getting it looked at. And for me, it's like, okay, a limb has to be severed, and then I'm going in, and that can't be the case anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I do think it all comes down to self-care, right? It's really, really time that we stop looking at our clothing size or what we weigh. we need to look within and feel within and notice, okay, I'm lacking energy, and really with self-compassion, move forward with the idea of, okay, well, what's the next best thing I could do right now that is a good form of self-care? And if you really are focused on health and well-being, I think that's the right mindset. But the other thing that I was going to say, and I've been thinking on this a lot, so I've been surveying the Body Kindness Insiders, and I've gotten some really interesting feedback as to what they are struggling with. And so for listeners who might not yet be an insider, basically it's a free way to get in my e-course, and then there's basically a series of emails that you get, and then you get invited to the Body Kindness Insider group on Facebook. And so that's at bodykindnessbook.com. And then there's a button on there that says get started, like in the global navigation up top. And if you click get started, you'll see where it asks for your email address, and then you'll get the e-course right away. So, and that I definitely recommend, but it's been interesting, because I've been thinking about, okay, what kind of things are we going to do on the podcast? And, how can I better help people practice body kindness? So I'm working on something cool based on everybody's feedback. And it really aligns with some of what you're talking about in this sort of, I'm not in a place where I want to be right now. And it's this idea that we're always making progress, even if it's like taking some steps ahead, having some good progress and feeling good, and then backsliding a little bit, and then being in a backslide for a little bit, and then, having these open eyes and awareness, and it having the energy and the interest to kind of prioritize body kindness again for a little bit. And then, so I think we have this vision, right? That there's a destination. Here's this health destination where I always do everything perfectly, right? And like, to me, that looks just like a unattainable, rigid, perfectionist diet to me. Yep. And so if you see it as just, health is a continuum, and it's not something, you don't get a gold star for health. Anyone can pursue the idea of feeling healthy and good health, but we don't have ultimate control over that. You'll always find people who appeared to be the picture of health and got cancer or diabetes or, and we've talked before about Bob Harper, but we can pull back that example, whether it's an example like that, looks like the picture of health, has a heart attack that nearly killed him, that would have killed many other people, that you don't have as much control as you think. And so, which to me is why it's like, find other reasons for focusing on your well-being that aren't, I can't even say aren't just about health, because it depends on your definition of health. I think the way we view health in America is completely broken, and we need to just reboot it, because it's always twisted into weight and, all that type of stuff, and I think if we focus on the idea that, generally in health, we want to feel good, but it's not reality that we're going to feel good every day. It's not reality that, there might be a month where we are just in a funk. And so I think that's the thing that I want to point out, is that, a lot of things you see, it's like, this is a 4-week program, this is an 8-week program. And it's like, it's not long enough to help people change their mindsets and change their behaviors. And it doesn't account for, if something comes up in life, that there are certain ways where you could put parts of your self-care on a back burner that's not self-sabotage. It's just like, right now, exercise is taking a backseat a little bit. I've got this brain fog. I'm struggling with some things here, but I'm still going to do what I can on my well-being, but I'm noticing that this is taking a backseat. And I think if we have guilt and shame and blame around that, that does us no good service for our emotional health, Yeah.
And I think for me, that's what's changed over our time together, is the fact that, hey, there's bumps along the road. I just know that right now I'm not feeling at my peak. And like you said, there is no destination, but there's times where you can be honest with yourself and check in and say, hey, I'm feeling a little bit more groggy maybe than I have been in the past. And I just want to kind of get back a little bit more to where I feel like I'm rocking and rolling. And there's a lot of, of our listeners out there that, I would urge to just, check in with yourself. Be honest with what your body's telling you. Move forward. Don't get held up by some of these small little bumps or snafus. There have been a lot of great things that have happened this summer as well, Rebecca, that, I'm super happy to be a part of. One of our listeners the other day, and I haven't even told you this, kind of reached out via Instagram and just talked about how much they were getting out of the podcast, and just spoke very highly of you. And it was just so good to hear that kind of feedback and see that, there's people out there, tuning in and making some really positive changes in their life.
Yeah, I love hearing from people, and I would welcome anybody to reach out to Bernie, reach out to me anywhere you can see us on social. You can also, I always share emails about the podcast. So if you email Rebecca, REBECCA at bodykindnessbook.com, and just put something in the subject about the podcast, I'll make sure Bernie gets it. You could ask us questions, and you could give us show suggestions. And certainly we appreciate ratings and reviews, because that's how it helps people make it more visible. But yeah, I mean, I think that I love chatting with you. I love that we can connect and stay in touch, and it's good for me too. It's good to think about what I want to put some of my effort into as well, and it's helpful to me. I mean, I'm practicing body kindness just as much as everyone else, and I would say that there's one thing that is really, I basically just decided yesterday. And I don't know if you know or remember, I guess I can't remember if we talked about it on the show, but I know I shared stuff about it on social media. But I signed up to do my first marathon since my first daughter was born. So in 5 or 6 years, I think, with my friend Rolo, who you know Rolo. And
Rolo.
I know. And super excited. I started out, the training was fine and good, and I was excited about it. And I mean, we've done marathons together back in the day. It's a lot on your body. And I was very vocal about, marathoning isn't, you don't need to do it for health, and there are parts of it that could be decidedly unhealthy. And I was concerned about the time commitment and all this stuff, but I really thought during the summer, because I basically was traveling for work stuff and some family downtime with my girls because they were off for the summer, between early July and the middle of August. And I did move my body, and I did what I could, for consistent movement, but there were just so many factors, and basically the training fell by the wayside. And so then it went to, okay, well, maybe you'll, do the half. And, I ran yesterday with Rolo. He was visiting, and, we had a decent run. And the same thing. So his partner who was going to run has a stress fracture, and so he's in a cast. And Rolo had an injury from a few months ago, and he's still going to go because he needs to go for work. But basically, Paul's not going, obviously, because he's in a cast and it's hard for him to get around. And I was getting the feeling like, this just isn't the right time for you. Like, your body's not ready for it. It's not going to be a marathon. And by the way, you'd be away from your family for 5 days, and work stuff. And it was like, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. I was like, it is okay to just be grateful for what you got out of the training, and yeah, of course, you can email the race and hope you can get in a future race. And, usually they're generous about things like that, especially if you have an injury. Cause I do, I've just got weird stuff going on with my glute and hamstring, and just as my body is saying no, and I'm listening to it, but I'm not calling it a failure. I'm not saying I fail. It's truly this self-compassion of the best thing for you is to not travel, to spend some time doing some work stuff that's important to you, and to just be grateful for what you got out of it. And that not completing a marathon this year doesn't define you, doesn't judge you in any way. And so
no, as a matter of fact, I really like that you're giving yourself props for the training, because anybody who's a runner or has run any type of a distance race knows that the training is the most challenging part. Not to mention your videos were hilarious, guys. If you're not friends with Rebecca on Instagram, please hop on. I like the fact that you're very real about everything, guys, and everything from water to restroom issues. I mean, Rebecca talks about it, and I'm definitely a fan of hers on Instagram because of the real that you're getting out of it. And you know what? I mean, Rebecca, I think that that's really responsible and kind of you and kind to yourself to realize that that's not what needs to happen at this particular time. And I remember the last marathon, the very last marathon that I ran was the Chicago one. And I was completely underprepared and pushed myself. And I should not have. I was, when you properly prepare for a race, at least in my case, I'm speaking just specifically to me, you feel very tired, very beat up, but my recovery was nice and healthy. Everything worked because I really stuck to a regimen and I was in tune with my body. And that last race that I did where I hadn't really trained the way that I needed to, and I didn't listen to myself. It took literally like 2 to 3 months for me to feel normal again. And that was so unhealthy. So I definitely know that that's something I will never do again. And I think it's really cool of you to actually, put in the training, put in the time, and to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to do the entire race. And that's really responsible. And I think our listeners out there, whatever aspect that, this conversation or this example trickles into your life, it's something you should understand. You're not a bad person for not running a marathon, whatever your marathon is. Really quick, I wanted to share, and I don't know how I feel about this, so I want to unpack this just briefly before we sign off. The Biggest Loser, the TV show, and that has allowed me the pleasure of having a small little baby platform to use to speak about things on health, is no longer.
Yeah, I know.
It's I
hooray!
officially canceled. Yeah, so hooray, right? But at the same time, Rebecca, I would be lying if I said I wasn't torn. And it's not that I'm not sad, that I'm not glad that it's off and it's no longer kind of giving people this false idea of what weight loss and health should look like. But it was and has been a big part of my life. Yeah. And let me break it down for you so that our listeners can kind of understand what I mean. It was a big part of my life. Yes, I went on the show. Yes, I lost some weight. I was an at-home winner. Looking back in retrospect, we know that a lot of aspects of how I did it were very unhealthy for me, and things 10 years later that I'm still unpacking. So in that regard, yes, I think it was time for us as a society to see that the show wasn't doing as much good as it maybe had originally thought that they were going to do, if that was even a thought in the producer's mind. But out of that show, I made a terrific lifelong friend in Brittany, and I met the love of my life, my wife, through Brittany, and then I am now the father to an amazing little girl who is literally my heart walking outside of my body. It's a chapter that has officially closed, and I am a little saddened, not by the show closing, but just by that chapter kind of being completely over. And it's weird, right? Because I know that show put me through some things, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to feel about it. And again, it's not that I'm mourning the shutting down of the show. I think it's just another chapter. Time to move on. Time to figure out.
Well, you and I also met through the show because it was when I was doing all my body shaming dieting crap.
Yes.
And
let me jump in real quick. Yeah. Because I'm super passionate about this. And for all my listeners, and I know I'm going to get your input, Rebecca, but I feel like The Biggest Loser, when it started, again, I don't know what could have possibly been in the mind of the producers. Were they trying to help America, or was it just a really great show concept to see a bunch of overweight people struggle through activities while they were being egged on or, whatever. But I do feel that The Biggest Loser opened up the conversation in a way that around health or weight loss that hadn't been there previously. I do feel that, there were a great deal of positive spins that were placed on it. Now, 10 years out, we know that the effects that had on the contestants, and the fact that that type of weight loss and health in general isn't sustainable. But I do feel like it started a conversation, and I feel in some way it's contributed to the evolution of what we know to be a better way to take care of oneself.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting, I mean, I sort of my hindsight opinion of it is that it was an entertainment show, that the reason why it was on for 17 seasons was because it was a huge moneymaker. And the reason why it's not on now is because it wasn't making any money anymore. And definitely the world is moving toward anti-diet and body positivity. And I'm not really sure if ever health and well-being was on the mind of the people behind the show. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't presume. But I personally feel bad for anyone who felt suffering at the hands of the show, whether that's before, during, after, because as human beings, we are actually more naturally designed to feel connection and compassion and not harm one another. And I think kind of what you're saying maybe is that watching the experience, for me, I think eventually people said, this isn't right. We shouldn't be treating people this way. I mean, I am personally grateful for Kevin Hall's research that he did with the 6-year follow-up from season 6 contestants, because I use that data now when I speak to dietitians, trainers, therapists, any helping professional where I happen to have a platform, even in my interviews. And I'll use that as evidence of what happens in the body when you try to cut calories and, over exercise. And the fact that in the research papers, they say that similar effects are shown even with moderate tweaks. And so, and again, I just have to say, because everyone gets it twisted, I am not saying that nobody can lose weight. It's the issue about giving up control of the body, and that you're looking at what we know the best of it is that, set point theory is actually being shown to be less and less of a theory and more of a reality. There's a range where people's bodies are happy, that's genetically predetermined. There are things that could push you out. Dieting is one of them. Diseases and conditions is another one. So if somebody's like, and most people don't weigh what they weighed in high school, or right out of college, there's a natural progression anyway with hormonal changes and everything. But at the end of the day, sure, people can have weight fluctuations, and there may be a very small percentage of people who could lose a large amount of weight and keep it off. But when you look at the vast majority, anytime you have a conversation about the number of the weight, I think it takes away from the focus of the data that show that if you're physically active, if you see your doctor, if you eat well, if you socialize and try to avoid loneliness, basically well-being, if you take care of yourself, those are the actions that are likely to help you do your best to be at whatever weight is right for you. And then at that point, it becomes fighting the societal body oppression, So like you in a larger body than me face oppressions that I don't face. That shit's not right. And that is what we have to speak out against and fight and everything. And I'm kind of going on a tangent here, back to The Biggest Loser.
But what I feel like The Biggest Loser, and again, I could be giving it more credit than it deserves, but I feel like The Biggest Loser has allowed us to have these conversations, now at this particular point. When The Biggest Loser came out, there's a huge fan base, and there still is. There are so many people on that show that were extremely kind and wanted the best for us, and really felt. I know some of the producers on that show and the casting people, like when they went out and casted this, they really were torn about who to pick, because they fell in love with some of the people that were in line auditioning, and they wanted to help them. I remember having conversations with some of these casting individuals who really felt like, so when you do a show like The Biggest Loser, any reality show, there's casting people and they go to bat for you. And these people really felt like what they were doing was, throwing a lifeline to somebody that they had developed a relationship with. And, now we're able to see in hindsight that, it was done in extreme and it wasn't healthy. It's not maintainable. And it's taken me 10 years to get right with myself again, mentally and emotionally, through our work. But I do feel like The Biggest Loser, it was a starting point nationally, and I couldn't be more proud of I think where we are as a society, or where we're moving, because we're not there yet, to have these types of conversations, for the audience to finally say, you know what, this show's no longer what we want to see. But at the same time, I think that for us to disregard the starting point, not the starting point, but a chapter in our evolution is wrong as well. And I think The Biggest Loser is exactly that.
Yeah. Well, this is what I think too. I mean, you have a right to feel however you want to feel about it, right? Like nobody can tell you how to feel about your experience. It's your embodied experience, and you're allowed to feel positive things about it if that's what you truly feel, and even us having this conversation, we're allowed to say, okay, I align here, I don't align here, and that's the beauty of engaging in respectful conversations with people. The other thing I think is complex creatures, we're allowed to kind of hold two opposites, right? So it's like, on the one hand, I know that I wasn't doing healthy things on that show. On the other hand, I'm grateful for certain people I met. I've got a lifelong friend, a wife, a child, and then whatever I am, another lifelong friend, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it offered a lot of opportunities outside of what I would have done with myself. And, I can't take those things back. And I love the fact that you said, within ourselves, we can be at complete opposites, because I am glad that the show is no longer around. And I say that with a heavy heart, just because I know the people behind the camera, and the fact that there are some really great people out there that are looking for other types of employment. But I also know that it was time for us to start having the conversations that you and I are having, and the information being shared that we now know is a healthy way to live life. Yeah, Rebecca, it's very interesting. I would really, and I'm begging our listeners to give us some feedback about what you feel on this particular issue. Being that you're listening to our Body Kindness podcast, what are your thoughts? And I like Rebecca said, I love open and honest conversations. If you're like super happy that it's gone, share that with me. Tell me why. If you were a fan and you're a convert now because you see that, kindness is really the way to move forward, tell us. Just in general, if there was anybody out there that watched the show and maybe, I'm going to use a pretty hard word here, but fell victim to trying to lose weight that way or get healthy that way, and now found that it did more harm than good, share that with us. If there's somebody out there who watched the show and achieved their weight loss goals and has kept it off, share that with us too. I would love to see, because I would just love to see what our listeners think about this.
Okay, cool. Well, and we have, I guess, a month or so to hear from them before we'll be back on together again. But before we wrap today, and this is, I guess, kind of I don't know, to me, it's like almost a perfect time to introduce this challenge, because I think that it's going to help you with consistency with movement, but also with stress and anxiety management, and however that might be impacting your daytime energy and everything. For me, I'm super excited about this challenge because it's going to be re-engaging with something that I miss, and I think finally doing something that I know is achievable, but I never put on the priority of, okay, and you're going to do this, right now. And I think so I'm grateful for the timing of all of it, and I hope listeners do it with us as well. But, I want to run a little challenge for us for September. And so, this challenge, there's no prize money. There's no, I really want to just offer positive encouragement for self-care, for a specific type of movement, stretching, meditation, and something that readers will know why I value it so much. But September is National Yoga Month. And whether you hate yoga because you giggled or farted in class and got really embarrassed, or you know, are already a huge fan, anyone can join and participate in this. You know, I will have some emails going out educating and encouraging about yoga. So again, when I mentioned earlier, going to bodykindnessbook.com and then click get started, you will, when you'll get the Body Kindness emails for the general practice, but you'll also get nudges about the challenge. So it's basically going to be yoga every day the month of September. And now hear me out here. You do not have to, pay a bunch of money and go to a class. If you have classes accessible and you're interested in it, like at least once I want to try a different type of yoga, like aerial yoga or just like something crazy, stand-up paddleboard yoga, like at least once in that month. Like that's my personal challenge. But to do it every day, I've always, ever since Jessamine Stanley came on the podcast and said, do a home practice, I was like, duh, and there's free yoga online. So I'm going to share lots of free resources and I'm going to show either a short video or a photo, probably mostly through Instagram, but I'll use the hashtag BK Yoga, but also use Body Kindness as a hashtag because I always look at that. But if you can remember BK Yoga and just show yourself doing it, I mean, it could be any pose, any amount of time.
People, child pose, downward dog. I'm going to go back and say child's pose. Look into yoga this month. And I'll tell you what, Rebecca, I have always gotten my butt kicked by yoga. I'm not a yoga class farter, but I am definitely one of those yoga class sweaty monsters because I would rather run a half marathon than do some of these yoga classes because my body, for some reason, just gets super challenged in a yoga class. I look around and I'm seeing, a 4'8" woman like supporting her body weight, and it's just amazing to me some of the things that go on in these yoga classes. So definitely, listeners, please send us some of those pictures. I would love to see them as well.
Yeah, and we'll be on the podcast. We have a couple of guests in September who are doing great things with yoga for accessibility, intersections of yoga and body positivity and body image. So I'm excited to have those guests on as well. And then when we reconnect at the end of the month, we will have a show kind of talking about how we felt our daily intentional yoga practice helped us. So I'm super excited to be doing this. And, I feel like my body needs yoga, that the consistency is the key. So literally September 1st, I'm rolling out a mat. So it's just staring at me. So the best, time of day that it is for me, I'm going to go to it, do some poses. I'll be sharing online videos. I will try to share as much free stuff as possible. In the show notes for this episode, I'll share some links for where you can find events and things going on for Yoga Month in your area. You may find free classes. A lot of cities will do yoga in the park, and just try to engage with your community or even at home. This doesn't have to cost money or doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You could get DVDs from your library potentially, but just be open to whether it's 5 minutes or a 90-minute class, a daily consistent centering, breathing, poses, and just see how that, does it bring a sense of calm? Does it bring a sense of energy? Does it bring a sense of well-being? And maybe when you do a more intense class, you feel it in your muscles the next day. And that's, it's all good, but let's see how we can learn and grow through the practice of yoga over the next month.
Yeah, and I just really quickly want to reach out to anybody who maybe hasn't tried yoga or who's a beginner. Get out there, just explore it. Maybe even start by following somebody, on Instagram or peeking into a class. I know that it can be super intimidating sometimes, but let me tell you, a lot of yoga communities are super inviting, welcoming, nurturing, just really kind. I know that we have a lot of yogis that follow us and listen to our podcast, and I'm pretty sure that you can link up to some of their Instagrams. But like you said, there's so many resources out there. But Rebecca, thank you so very much for this conversation. I miss you when we don't talk. I miss our listeners because I know you're out there, and you guys have been. Can I just send a shout out really quick to our listeners, to your listeners, Rebecca, because there have been times where out of nowhere I just get a friend request and it's followed by such an amazing, heartfelt message, and you guys lift me up. I hope that when I get the opportunity to be on Rebecca's show, that I'm helping you do the same. I love you guys, I really do, and I'm feeling super huggy this morning. So I hope you're getting what I'm putting down, guys.
Yeah. You know what? I just had this idea. I'm gonna get you a Bernie at bodykindnessbook.com email address so people can email you that way. I'll commit that by the time this is up, since I just thought of it and I'm not going to edit it out, it'll be Bernie, BERNIE at bodykindnessbook.com. So you could email him that way and it will forward to his email. And yeah, connect with us on social and just, let us know. I mean, we're here for you and each other. And so it helps when you talk to us.
So keep on being kind, keep on listening. I'm telling you, this community is growing, Rebecca, and I couldn't be happier with the people that are really serving as mouthpieces on spreading body kindness. It's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, so enjoy your stretching and bending and all your yogi stuff. And I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
And that's our show. Thank you so much for listening. I would love if you could take a minute and leave a rating and review on iTunes. I know they don't make it very easy, so I have a few quick tips for you. First, launch the Apple Podcast app, and then you're going to click the search button to enter the name Body Kindness, and you'll find my podcast. You'll see the album art. And when you click on the album art, there is going to be a button in the middle at the top. It's called Reviews. Click that. And then when you scroll to the bottom, you will see an option to leave a review. And so you'll click that button and go ahead and write your thoughts. I also would love ideas for future episodes. You can email me, Rebecca at bodykindnessbook.com. Again, that's Rebecca at bodykindnessbook.com. I love chatting about the show and how it's helpful. And so keep those emails coming. And also, if you're not yet completed with the e-course, don't forget that's a free resource for anyone who's interested in practicing body kindness. If you visit bodykindnessbook.com and click on Get Started, just enter in your name and email and you'll get instant access. I'll see you there.